Michael Chandler is supposed to be 5'8", and Paddy Pimblett is 5'10". Yeah, they really don't measure these fighters' heights. That press conference is all over the place. Alexander Volkanovski, being awesome as always, reminding the fans that once he becomes champ, he's going to bring it back to the glory days of active championship fights. And Diego Lopes said the same thing, so featherweight is in good hands no matter who wins that fight. The missing of Ilia Topuria is always going to be a different kind of feeling for featherweight though, but at least we're going to see high-level fights consistently. And he told Patricio Pitbull, you get a good performance over Yair, we might fight later in the year. And Pitbull looked focused, ready to show out in his UFC debut with an exciting performance, and Brazil stood up when Diego Lopes entered the stage, dapping up the homies while wearing the jacket with the cowboy hat, emo haircut, so much aura that he inspired Volkanovski to show off his singing skills. I didn't know the man could sing like that. He can fight, he can sing, he can cook. What can't the man do? I gotta stop glazing. Geoff Neal had like one question and pretty much said he's gonna go for the knockout. Prates said the same thing. And then we get to, I don't know if I want to say it's the exciting part of the press conference, because it started off exciting, it started off entertaining, but then it was too much. He's our autistic king, and bro went full autism. Like, you gotta chill, bro. Silva had the crowd behind him initially. He had the whole crowd screaming F Bryce Mitchell, but then Silva just did too much, man. The whole globe thing, he was playing it to it way too much. Like, the fans just stopped caring about it. There was a lot of boos too, and it was like, he kind of fumbled it, man. He had the crowd behind him. At the end, they didn't really care about him as much. And Bryce was consistent from the beginning to the end. When Silva was barking, which is like his thing now, Bryce told him you're barking up the wrong tree. And because of the translator, Bryce told him you're lucky you have a translator. He's making you sound smarter than you actually are. I've never heard a fighter say that before. He also brought it back to religion with the Lord tattoo on Silva, saying that you have the Lord on your chest while I have the Lord in my heart. You gotta give it to Bryce Mitchell, man. He's actually surprisingly witty with his comebacks. That fight's gonna be intense, man. These guys do not like each other. And then Pitbull started talking about all the fighters that turned him down. No, he talked about a bunch of fighters like Aljamain Sterling. He said Yair took forever to accept the fight, and various other fighters. But just to clarify, that doesn't mean that the fighters themselves deny the fight altogether. Sometimes them turning down the fight is them actually turning down the negotiations with the UFC, not necessarily the opponent, right? And then the UFC will tell the other guy, hey man, he turned you down, he doesn't want to fight you. When it's really like, okay, maybe the money wasn't there, or the fight is way too soon for a training camp, or they can't get a visa in time, or whatever it is, right? But it could also be that these fighters didn't want to fight Patricio Pitbull in his UFC debut. It could be that as well. We've seen Dana talk about fighters turning down fights when they didn't really turn it down the way he says they did. Paddy did say that once he beats Michael Chandler, he's going to be in title contention, which he'll be in line to fight Charles, Justin, Fiziev if he wins, Arman Tsarukyan, but he said he wants to fight Ilia Topuria. If he beats Chandler, sure, like maybe in the future, but Ilia's hinting at maybe a title fight with Islam or some other big fight. I don't think they would give him Paddy Pimblett unless Ilia loses. And surprisingly, Chandler didn't say too much. He didn't get many questions asked, mainly just like about Pitbull, that they come from Bellator, they're in the UFC, and if they would ever fight each other. He just wishes Pitbull success, and Pitbull's like, yo, maybe one day. And it's interesting because Pitbull was the one that won the fight, and he's the one that's saying, yo, I'll rematch him. The guy who lost the fight doesn't care to rematch. And it's interesting that Chandler didn't get asked many questions since he's been the company guy, but it seems that isn't as important as actually winning the fights. And it's not like Chandler isn't the talker. He can talk well. He's not like Robbie Lawler who does his talking in the cage. It's much more important if he actually wins the fights than just losing the majority of his fights while also being exciting. Being exciting is great, but it's not everything. Winning is the most important thing at the end of the day. Man, I'm excited for Pitbull. If he beats Yair, it does shake up the featherweight division because he will be in title contention. And with how long he's been at the top of Bellator, winning 2 belts over there, for a long time known to be one of the best fighters outside the UFC, it would be exciting to see him actually fight for the belt against Volk specifically, or even against Diego. And I like Yair. Yair's awesome. He has a great fighting style, but he's been there for a long time, man, and it doesn't seem like he'll ever win the undisputed title. So if Pitbull coming to the UFC beats him, it'll create new contenders for featherweight ever since Ilia left too, you know? And Ilia leaving too, that you need new guys at the top, rather the same fighters as before, right? If Volk wins the belt and the top contenders are Yair and Ortega still somehow, that wouldn't be great for featherweight. So the press conference was good. Volk singing was my favorite part. Bryce had some good lines. Silva did way too much. Bro's got to calm down. Even Jon Anik had to step in there and be like, okay, next question. He's gonna be talking about this globe forever if we don't stop him. And this is his first press conference. Maybe the fans isn't ready for his craziness, but maybe if he beats other contenders, I think people will indulge in his autism. Can you imagine like the whole arena barking and holding up globes? But yeah, that was an entertaining press conference. And what was your guys' favorite part? And I'll see you guys in the next video.